Hello and welcome. We're going to be looking at translations today and graphing the image. So with translations, this is where we have a pre-image. So in this case, our pre-image would be this triangle ABC. And then we talk about the image, we're actually talking about what we have once we complete the translations and move those points. So we can see here we have A and then this apostrophe, B, this apostrophe, and that shows us that that's the new point after the translation has been followed the rules. So when we think about a translation is going to slide the figure to a different location. So we started here and we had to slide the point over. Same thing with B. We're going to slide this over and then the same thing with C. And so we should get a shape that results in exactly the same dimensions that we had to begin with. Okay. We're going to look at some examples of translations and how to graph them. So this first example is going to be, it's going to tell us that we want to graph the image of L, which is at points 7 and -9. And then we're talking about a translation of 1 unit up. Okay, so remember when we talk about ordered pairs, we have 7 and we have -9. And we have to remember that this is going to be our X and this is going to be our Y. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move the point left or right. Okay, so X is your left or right movement. And then Y is going to be your up or down movement. So we're going to start at the origin. We're going to move over 7 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then from this point, that's where we're going to move down -8. So we're going to go down. We already have L plotted here, but just a quick review on plotting points in a coordinate plane. Now that we have this point, we have the pre-image. So what we're going to do in order to move this translation up 1 unit, we're going to first start with this point. And then we're going to take this point and we're just going to move it 1 place up, just as the directions tell us, which means this would be our L, our image. So when we look at the ordered pair for this one, again, we're going over 7 places. Okay, we want to figure out where this point lines up with, but instead of going down to -8, we're actually going only down to -9. We're only going down to -8. So our image would be at 7 and then -8. The next example we're going to look at is we have this image. We want to graph the image of R, which is at -7, -1. We're talking about a translation of 5 units to the right. Okay, so we're going to start again. We're going to plot our point and start at the origin. We're going over to -7 and down to -1. And then what we want to do is we want to take this point and we need to move it 5 units to the right. So from here, we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. And that's going to be where our point is going to go now. This is our image. Once we have those points, we can figure out where our new ordered pair is. So if we start at the origin, we're going over -2 places. So that would be our X. And then we're going down 1, which would be our Y. So our image would be at -2, -1. Another way we can look at this is we talked about our X and our Y, that our X is our movement right or left. And our Y is our movement up or down. So when we look at this and we see that it says that we're going to move this point, translate this point 5 units to the right, we can see that our Y's are going to stay the same, our Y coordinates, but then we can see that our X's from our pre-image to our image that's going to be what changes because we're moving that left or right movement. In this case, we're moving to the right. If we're moving up or down, the X would stay the same and the Y coordinates would be different. Take a look at another example. We've been kind of looking at just one point at a time, okay? We've only been looking at one direction as far as how we're translating this point. So now we're looking at this as this graph image of K, which is at 0, -10, after a translation of 10 units to the right and 3 units up. So here we can see we're going right and up. So our X and our Y should be different in this case. So if we start at this point K, and it's important to break this down. Don't try to do it all at once. First, start with this, the directions of moving this point 10 units to the right, because that's the first thing in the direction. So we're going to go over 10 units to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'm going to place a point right there, just so that I have that there. But then what we want to do is we need to also continue and follow the directions and move this point 3 units up. And so from here, we're going to say 1, 2, 3. And that's where our point's going to go. Now this point that we have in red, we can actually erase this because this was not completing the question. So the image, now we have this image here, and we can figure out our ordered pair. It lines up with 10 on the X axis. Okay, so our X is 10, and then it also lines up with -7 on the Y, and so that would be at -7 for the Y. So if there is more than one set of instructions for this translation, you want to make sure that you start with one, and then once you finish those directions, like in this case, we moved 10 units to the right. Once we finished with that, then we were able to move it 3 units up. What happens though when we have an entire shape that we're working with? So in this case, we have this square of KLMN, and we want to graph the image. But in this case, we actually have 2 sets of instructions. We have 6 units to the left and 4 units up. And so what we need to do is we need to take each one of these points, okay, one at a time, and we're going to follow the instructions one at a time. So we're going to start with K here. We need to move this left 6 units and then up 4. And so I'm going to go from K, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once we've moved it 6 units to the left, then we can actually take this point and move it 4 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to be where our new point, our image of K, is going to go. And I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to erase this point so it doesn't get in the way. The next point that we're going to move is we're going to look at point L. Okay, so point L is at 8, -5. And so this point right here, we're going to take this and we're going to move this over 6 places to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we can go 4 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice too that how the set of instructions, we first start with 6 units to the left and then we stop. And then from this point, that's where we can continue to move up from there. So we don't really start over. We don't take L and move it 6 places to the left and then go back to L, move it 4 places up. We go 6 places to the left and then 4 places up from there. So again, I'm going to erase this stuff so it's not conflicting with what we're working on. And this was for L. And then now we can move point M, which point M is at 8, -3. And so from here, we're going to move 6 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And this will be the image of M. And then the last point that we have is we have point N, which is at 6, -3. And so we're going to start here and we're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we're going to go from here, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 places. This is the image for N. All right, so now that we have all of our points moved, we can connect these lines just as we had for our pre-image. And we see here that we have the same shape that we started with, okay? So translation is not going to change the size or the shape of the pre-image. It's simply going to slide that pre-image to where its image will be plotted according to the instructions given. So in this question with the square, we moved 6 units left and then 4 units up. Okay, so, and that's where changing it hasn't changed the size of the shape. When we think about this term congruent, that's what we mean when we talk about congruent. It's the same size, same shape as it was to begin with. We've got one more example here with another shape, another set of instructions. We want to graph the image of rhombus KLMN after a translation. And this translation is going to be 3 units to the left and 5 units up. So we can see that we're going left and we're going up. So both the X and the Y coordinates are going to change. And so we're going to start with point K here. And point K is at 3 and then -6. We want to move this left 3 units and then up 5. So from point K, we're going to count over 3 units to the left, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to go 5 units up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be where K, the image of K will be. So I'm going to erase the rest of this right here. And then the next point we're going to look at is point L, which is at 3, -1. So here we are going to move L 1, 2, 3, and then we're going up 5 units. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be the image of L. And I erased the point for K. We'll put that one back there. And then we have move points M, which is at 6, 3. So I'm going to go over again 3 units to the left, 1, 2, 3, and then 5 units up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is M. And then the last one here we have is at point N, which is at 6, -2. Again, we're going to go 3 places to the left, 1, 2, 3, and from there we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, which is N. And from this point, we can connect these. And we should have a shape that's very similar. It is congruent to the same that we started with our pre-image. One way you can check too to make sure is to see if we look at this line here for MN, count how many places it was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this where we want to make sure it's 5 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it is the same. And then you can also check the other side. You want to make sure you're checking those straight lines that are on the axes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over here 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It would not be ideal to check this one because it is a slanted line. This is where we would go back to finding the slope of that line. We can check that one to find the slope, but checking the 2 sides, we can see that those do match, and the translated points form a rhombus that is congruent to KLMN following the directions of the translation of 3 units to the left and then 5 units up.